morning, everybody. It's Tuesday, January 16th, and I have a very special guest with me today. Her name is Kathleen Winn, and she is running for Congress in the 6th Congressional District here in Arizona, which is in southern Arizona, and it encompasses the majority of Cochise County, some of Pima County, some of Pinal County, Graham County, and Greenlee County. So it's a pretty large swath of southeast Arizona. And Kathleen is a very dear friend of mine. I met her through the Mesa Republican Women is where I first met her. But Kathleen and I
don't hear her, but I see her.
Brandon. And she has been a very strong fighting force here in Arizona.
Can you hear her?
No.
I've already explained that you were running.
I mean, there's something, but I can't hear it.
You were running for Congress here in Arizona in the 6th District, Kathleen. So I want to bring you on and introduce people.
I can't hear her, and she's talking to me.
One moment, please.
We're going to get this put together so that she can hear us. Once we get her to the point where she can hear us and everything, then
I'll turn down.
She's going to talk to us about all of the wonderful things that she's done here in Arizona.
Let me double check everything here.
Okay. I can hear it like faded away, like it's.
She's been down at the border a few times this last week, so we've got updates from the border.
Yeah.
And
can you turn up a little bit more?
Working with children who've been trafficked and abused in the state of Arizona. So there's lots of information that Kathleen's going to unroll with us today and let you know why she is probably the best pick for the Congressional District 6 in Arizona to go and represent us. And Kathleen, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks, Miriam. We just got the sound working, so thank you.
Yes. So tell us about your journey. I was reading so much about you when, working with the community outreach and education under the Arizona Attorney General. You helped establish the Veterans Court, the TASA, which is a task force against senior abuse, trafficking victims, vulnerable children in the foster care system. You chaired the Marine Corps Scholarship Foundation. You've been so involved with the Republican cause here in Arizona, the Mesa Republican Women's Club, very, very involved there. And now you've decided this is a time that you need to step up and run for Congress. And I just can't think of a better person to be in that position and represent us. So tell us about all these things that you've done in your life, Kathleen.
Well, that's a lot, Marianne. I'm 65, so I don't know that we have that much time, but let me hit the high points. I loved my job at the Arizona Attorney General's office. I spent 30 years in business working to have people be successful. And when I got to the Attorney General's office, my job was to warn consumers how they could become victims of crime. And when you do that, you learn where all the crime is being committed. And I got to work with law enforcement. I got to work with your son. I got to work with so many great people who had a heart to making our communities stronger and better. And as I look across our state right now, and I look at the cartel-controlled border and the fentanyl and the trafficking, we have gone completely in the wrong direction. And what we know is when we give attention in government to a problem, hopefully the problem gets better. But right now, our government is not fixing problems. They seem to be exacerbating them. And so I just felt at this time, based on all the work that I've done, that I needed to step forward. As you know, I have 7 children. My husband and I have 7 children. And my 18th granddaughter is about to be born any moment, 18th grandchild. And so I can't not think of anything more important for me to do than protect the future of those children. And so that I've stepped forward into working to become the U.S. Congress person representing the 6th District, which is the border. So I've decided to do that. And I think it's important that we understand that this is our country and that these seats are supposed to be representative seats. These are seats where people are supposed to be elected and do the will of the people. And I don't believe that we have a voting record right now of our current incumbent, I believe that it's been kind of bought and paid for, and that he's voting for whoever has paid for him, which is not a representative government. And it's time that we stand up, especially at this moment in history, and say, not on our watch. We need to go back to what the founding fathers intended for this country. And so I'm fighting to secure the border or shut the government down. Enough is enough. We have the power of the purse in Congress, yet we're funding Ukraine. We're funding so many other things, but we're not securing our border. So based on all my history and all my experiences, I think we need to define this problem and then solve it. And there should be no other higher priority than to keep America safe. And so that's what I'm working on.
Well, and you are very, very involved in a lot of different aspects. I mean, I can't tell the viewers how many situations I've been in. And if I have mentioned your name, they're like, oh, we know Kathleen. Oh, we know Kathleen. I mean, I was even talking to my friends in Texas, and they're like, oh, you need to get a hold of Kathleen Winn. She knows who we are. And I'm like, I know Kathleen Winn. I mean, Walter West, you know Walter.
Yes, I do.
And so Kathleen is very, very involved, and she has her ear open, and she knows exactly the issues that her constituents and the people of Arizona need. I mean, it just shows by your willingness to be so involved in the community in so many different aspects that, you know, you are the right person. And when you have somebody who's bought and paid for, it shows in their voting record, in the things that they say when they're being interviewed. And they're not really there concerned about what the people need and want. And
I think
you get out in the community.
I think that we've seen this, right? We saw that Kevin McCarthy wanted to be speaker, so he put people in certain seats and they voted for him, but he's not there anymore. And when he couldn't be speaker, he left the Congress. And there's a lot of people leaving Congress. This is not a publicity job. We're not running for prom king or queen. What we're trying to do is look at the total chaos that is in our country. So we the fentanyl crisis. When I was at the AG's office, we put prescription drug boxes in over 120 police stations. Why? Because kids were getting involved with opioids back then. But now kids are getting pills online, one pill and they're gone. Over 100,000 of our young people are dead. And that's just one aspect of this. We look at the human trafficking and the human smuggling, which I've spent since 2010 fighting against sex trafficking, sexual harassment, getting laws changed. Our children are our most valuable commodity to us as a family, not as a business. Our children are for sale. Over 120,000 different children are missing. And so here, I can stick it back in. My earplug came out. I'm sorry, Marion. So we have kids that are missing, and this government right now appears to be complicit with the transferring of children. And that we should never be that government. We have a 10-year backlog on the millions of people that have come into this country, and Border Patrol can't do their job. So this is a broken system, and you don't send the people that had time to fix it back if they're not doing anything to make it better. Our government should be operating in a much better way than they are right now.
And it makes me so sick because when you see these committee hearings in Congress and some of these representatives for the different departments go in and talk about, what they're doing about the unaccompanied children, and the congressional members will say, well, we've heard that there's this many hundreds of thousands of unaccompanied minor children missing. There's never an answer, Kathleen.
No.
Never, ever is there an answer. And they talk about, we're trying to get better about it, but there's never an answer of where are they?
Well, if they keep trying to get better, it's going to get worse, because when government is involved in solving a problem, you already have a problem. The founding fathers never intended for government to be this big. We don't know where 60% of our defense budget is. We have no idea where the money that we've sent to Ukraine has gone. There are so many unanswered questions. And when you ask very direct question and you don't get a straight answer, um, we deserve that accountability. Where's the people's representative if you can't get answers to those questions? And right now, the only question I believe that should be is, when are we securing the border? By when? And until we do that, not a nickel gets spent in this country. Shut the government down. I know people don't like to hear that, but there's no greater need right now than to secure our border and to get the cartels that are operating in our state out. And they've had free reign. And the cartels themselves have civil wars that are going on amongst them because it's so profitable, millions and billions of dollars, and everyone's lives are at risk. So I don't see why there's a greater need right now than to secure the border and then go do anything else that we believe that needs to be done. This is an election year, so a lot doesn't get done. In the year that the incumbent had, certain incumbents stood up. I think Eli Crane did a great job in representing our state, but I don't believe that when you send out mailer after mailer after mailer saying, I'm going to secure the border, those words are empty and hollow when you look at the incredible amount of devastation at the border, including our ranchers who are having to fight the cartels. Their fences are getting cut. Their cattle are dying, everything. We are not taking care of those citizens, and the citizens should come first, not the illegal immigrants.
Well, and Mayorkas continually goes in front of Congress and he never, ever tells the truth. He always says we've got control of the border. It's such an evil aura around this man. And you just wonder, was this his intention all along? Which I believe it was. I mean, I had a podcast last week all about Mayorkas because I really did a deep dive into him. And I really think that this was all by design. But the one thing that I want to make sure my viewers understand is when Congress talks about, we're not going to go along with this budget unless there's money in there to secure our border and stop this invasion. And we don't care if the government gets shut down. The necessary government that we need to operate this country will continue working.
Absolutely.
The frivolous types of departments and, people that aren't important in the everyday running, those are the people that's where the money will stop going to. And you know what, Kathleen? Maybe this country will run better if those people are out of the way, right?
Well, we have 3,400, I think it is, Marianne, departments that don't have congressional oversight that receive money. There's money going into grants to put in the woke culture all over the country. So, and again, no congressional oversight. So the Congress is supposed to be the power of the purse. They are supposed to be the people that manage every single nickel and dollar that we have. And yet, all of these wasteful spending things are occurring on their watch. So if you're on appropriations like my congressman is, you should be asking, where's the money? Where's the accountability? Who's responsible? But none of that is happening. And you mentioned Mayorkas. He sent one letter to tell him he's not doing his job. That's inadequate. Right. He should have been on the impeachment from the very beginning. Mayorkas has miserably failed this country. And for him to sit there and testify to Congress that everything is okay, we know differently. You just need to call a local law enforcement agency that's on the border. And to be 10 years behind, we can't even process the people that have come through for 10 years. How many known terrorists are in the country right now? And that's on Mayorkas. And quite frankly, that's on this Congress. They need to do their job.
Right. Well, and I think that they like kicking this can down the road, Kathleen, because, as far back as I can remember, illegal immigration and the border has been an issue. I mean, they were even talking about it in the Reagan years. There was money set aside in the Reagan years for border security to put a wall up. And then I look back, May of this year, it's going to be 10 years that my son was killed. In these 10 years, nothing has been done. Nothing has been done here in the state of Arizona with Department of Public Safety to change the overhead signs, something that was in the works 4 years before my son was killed, to give direction, wrong way driver ahead, get off the freeway. Instead, it just says conflicting traffic ahead. No, it just amazes me how much time goes by in government positions and they accomplish nothing. Nothing.
When I was at the AG's office, people told me I did 12 years worth of work in 4, but it's because I didn't come from government. I've not been a government worker my entire life. I was in private sector. And when you're in private sector and you have to make your paycheck and you have to pay other people's paychecks, you pay attention to taxes and to laws and to the rules. And when you've always been in government, it's like you're Santa Claus and you're giving away money and resources to pet projects. But to your point about Brandon, your son, as everyone knows, was coming home after working a shift at Mesa PD and met with a illegal immigrant, wrong way driver, and he took his life. And I can't believe it's going to be 10 years, but I will never forget the good that your son did in the community. And I got to work with him, and what a great young man he was, and what a loss, not only for your family, but for our communities. And we have these stories, so many of these stories. And if we know that this has happened and we do nothing to change it, then shame on us as a people that we did not take what we've learned, and it costs people's lives, and we don't change how it's affecting our citizens. And right now it is, I think it's intentionally chaotic. It's crazy. There's no political will, it appears, to secure the border. If there was, our border could be secured tomorrow. And you watch, we will have a Republican president. And based on last night's caucus, I think it's pretty clear who that's going to be. And we will need to restore order. But you need to have people that have the willingness to do the hard decisions. We have to cut spending. We cannot, we are spending my grandchildren and probably their children's future right now. We don't have the resources to do what we're doing. We are not the World Bank, and we are not using our resources wisely. So I think, we've got the influence of the CCP. Your show, we could go on, and yet we need to take care of the everyday average Arizonan. And collectively, each state needs to do that so that we can restore the small government, reduce government, get rid of departments that are not empowering and educating and doing the right things that they need to be doing in our country, and make government small. Again, if you have to go to government to solve your problem, as you know personally, it won't get solved. And that's not what government should be for. We need people to be empowered. And we do that by reducing taxes, not increasing them. I think our governor right now wants to increase taxes at a time when we're suffering under this incredible weight of mismanagement of the federal government by the Biden administration.
Well, and it's already, the figures out there, $415 billion is what's being spent of American taxpayer money to support this illegal invasion in our country. And it's only going to go up more. I mean, when you look at New York and how many hotels and motels that they've kicked people out of and taken over, and they're spending, way more than the nightly rates would have been on those rooms because the government doesn't care. And they'll spend that money to rent these hotels. Then you've got federally funded NGOs going in, non-governmental organizations going in and providing food that ends up in the trash can. They don't even open the food that's provided for them. And then you think about the fact that all of those hotels that are filled with illegals are not filled with tourists. And so the economy in New York is going to get even worse because people are avoiding these types of cities, Chicago, New York, Philadelphia, all these places where these migrants are flocking to because of sanctuary city policies that they know that they'll be shown leniency for the crimes they commit. So this is just a never-ending hamster wheel that we're on of disaster and American taxpayers feeling like we are the dummies who are being just whipped around by people in DC who don't really get how we feel. And I know you know how we feel.
Well, I do know how, because I've been out talking to voters, and I honestly, if the person that's sitting in the seat right now was doing his job, I wouldn't be running. I didn't want to run for Congress again. It's a hot, as you know, when you run for office, it's a lot of hard work. But the people were so dissatisfied with his voting record, with his turning the back on the very people that elected him and voting with the other side of the, not even the other side of the Republican Party, but with the Democrats. So we have 6 Republican congressional seats right now. There's 9 altogether. And so, our representative has been voting with Raul Grijalva. Raul Grijalva has done nothing to secure the border. And so how do you justify when you come home to your district that was the right thing to do? So it's more out of a willingness to hear what the people in the district and to your point, what the people in the state are saying, and supporting the will of the people. We are still we the people. That our Constitution today is still in place. I believe that we're 2 years away from our 250th anniversary. Most constitutional republics, I think we are maybe the first one, don't survive. But and the other side keeps saying we're a democracy. We're not a democracy.
No,
We're not. And language matters. And people are listening keenly. I don't think we've ever paid more attention to how our congressmen are voting than we are right now, because it's impacting our everyday life. And as you know, millions of people have crossed our border. We've lost Border Patrol agents. We've lost sheriffs. We have lost people in these getaways. Parents have been killed. Children have been killed. People are being paid. The cartels are in our schools. We've had young people killed very close to your community by cartel kids that are in the schools. They are reckless. They are being empowered, and they're getting away with this because we're not prosecuting crimes. We have weak prosecutors, and so everyone can do their job in terms of law enforcement, but if the prosecutor decides not to go after the criminals, then what was the point? And so we're demoralizing our police, and it's a perfect storm, Marianne. We've turned our back on God, and we are attacking families. We are attacking faith. We are attacking every aspect of our life that made us strong in this country, and then we don't understand why it's happening. And so for me right now, this is personal in that I feel like I have been called to stand up, that God's calling forth an army of good, true, God-loving people that are strong with their faith, that love this country, so that we can protect it from those who are profiting from whatever they're taking their position of power, and they're enriching themselves at the cost of the citizens of this country. And it just can't continue. And the chaos is intentional.
oh, absolutely. And I look at your Sheriff Daniels down there in Cochise County, which is a large part of your district. Well, I mean, you got a large part, Greenlee and Graham, and
I have a very large district.
yeah. But the progress he was making down there during the Trump administration, border wall was going up. He had a county attorney who was working alongside him, even if they were young Mexican kids or recruits, 15, 16 years old, who were drug mules. They were being prosecuted and put in jail for a year. So they had a great system going down there to where the cartel actually moved their business over to the next county over that saddles the border with Mexico. And the Biden administration came in and just wreaked havoc. I'm sure, I haven't been down there in a while, Kathleen, but what is it like down in Cochise County and Sheriff Daniels area?
Well, what's happened is they still do a decent job in Cochise County, but you have these super freeways, if you will, coming from Mexico through our state. And what the state did is they took away state land leases from ranchers. And so they've empowered the cartels to have these freeways, where ranchers used to have cows on this land, so it would be hard to come through it. But now one rancher I know had 1,000 cows. Now he has 100 cows. And our state government did that. So who's benefiting from it? You've heard follow the money. You have to look to see. But Sheriff Daniels lost a deputy. And when you do that, and your departments, Cochise County is a big geographic county, but the department itself isn't that big. So when you lose a deputy, it impacts the entire department. And they have had to go give death notices because of high-speed chases and people that have been killed. And so many criminal activities are happening in Cochise County, and the citizens are fighting against what they see is a systematic takeover by the cartels. And we cannot, it was unsustainable 2 years ago, according to Sheriff Daniels. We've gone way beyond that. So that's why where we started, secure the border, shut the government down until that border is secured. This government should not be allowed to operate because they're not operating for our benefit. And I don't mean that we get free stuff like the people that are coming here illegally, but that's atrocious. That you are incentivized to come to our country. We give you a phone, we give you an airplane ticket, we kick out, paying guests at hotels. And what I don't understand is why New York and Chicago aren't more upset about it. And they can blame the governor of Texas all they want, but at least Ken Paxton in Texas is trying to do something. And again, that results in more people coming through our border because we're not putting up the kind of defense that Texas is right now. So I applaud Texas's efforts,
Yes.
but then Arizona is going to be the recipient of more migrants because we're not doing that. And we're allowing people every day to come into our country that don't belong here and are not doing so legally. So their first act in our country is to break the law. And if we say we support the Constitution and the rule of law, and you've got someone in that position, Mayorkas, he shouldn't have his job. If he was in corporate America, hopefully, he would be fired. We fired people for not getting vaccines. I think this is at a whole new level of corruption. And other people need to go. And I'm hoping that the 2024 election is a referendum on the policies that we've been experiencing the last 3 years.
Well, and what a lot of people may not understand who live, in the interior of the United States is you can be along the border in Arizona, Nogales or Naco or different areas. You can actually hear gunfire and the cartel across the border in the middle of the night, even during the day. But you hear this going on, and you've got cartel 60 miles south of Phoenix, which is, in the middle of our state. You've got cartel up in the mountains directing human trafficking and drug trafficking paths where these people are going. So they're up on the mountains with binoculars, keeping an eye on what's happening down on the valley floor and letting them know which way to go. Go here, go west, go east, lay low. So we've got the cartel, like you said, operational in the state of Arizona. It's happening.
There's at least 35, 34 criminal enterprises that have been identified that are operating between Tucson and Phoenix.
Yeah.
So just Tucson and Phoenix, not even south of Tucson. So we know that there, I think 4 years ago now, we did a study when I was looking for trafficking networks, and we identified 155 before this administration. But we were turning that around. We were reducing that number. We were working with law enforcement. We were finding missing kids. It's not that we're not, but the number is so overwhelming. It's egregious that we have to do that. In 8 months ago now, it's been a while. To your point, time does fly. We were looking for a missing child, and the team that was doing it was right over the border, not in our country, and they came across a satanic cult site where they were sacrificing women and babies. And that's in this state. That's in the United States of America. We have satanic cult sites that are operational where they're sacrificing human beings, and that's going on. And I don't understand that there's no political will to stop that. And that sending a letter to Mayorkas as your way of handling it is unacceptable. And I'm tired of the rhetoric. I'm tired of people saying, giving us words and talking to us, not actually talking at us, because their actions are never in a correlate with the words that come out of their mouth. And it's time that we either be those people and say, I'm willing to be responsible. What I promise you, I will do, and I will do a lot to secure the border and to make our country safe, as opposed to someone who just wants a job, who's willing to tell you whatever he thinks you want to hear. That's unacceptable. And that's what we have right now. And, I've fought for the underdog my entire life. Getting veterans courts, you mentioned that earlier. That was so veterans could be connected to the services that they were entitled to. And when we did that, we found that they weren't as many as homeless, less suicides. But we need to take better care of our veterans and our law enforcement than we do illegal immigrants that are coming in this country. It's
Right.
It's appalling. It's disgusting to me that that's the state of affairs right now. And that's, Marianne, that's not the America you and I grew up in. Not at all. And
No.
we have respect for that. And our seniors are being targeted. And there's a lot of people that are we still have more seniors right now than we have teenagers. So there's a concerted effort to destroy the next generation. And I'd hate to think that they're winning, that we would lose this country because we didn't protect our children.
Well, and I look back to when Trump first came into office. You had Paul Ryan as a speaker, and we had a majority, quite a comfortable majority in Congress, and how those 2 years were just blown. And really, we didn't do the people's will and get the things done that needed to be done. And hopefully 2024 in November, we get the great news that we have Trump back in office. We've got a larger majority in Congress and Senate, so that we're able to get the things passed. And we've got good people like you who have come together of the like-mindedness that this is the time to take care of business. We're at a very precocious place in history where if we let this wither away and don't take advantage of this situation, if we're blessed enough to have the majority that we need and really push these people who have this evil agenda in place in this one world government and open borders and the United Nations. I mean, when you think about all the things that Trump did, and one of the biggest things that I am a supporter of is to get us out of the United Nations.
Absolutely.
I don't think that they are what they were. They're not now what they were put together to be at the beginning. As with a lot of organizations, things just kind of like fall by the wayside and they lose their vision. Just like Mayorkas has lost his vision of why the Department of Homeland Security was created. And to think that we've got a Cuban refugee running the Department of Homeland Security, and having gone through his career and see how he was, at USCIS, the Deputy Secretary of Homeland Security, he went through the whole system, Kathleen, and understood exactly what he was going to do once he got into that secretarial position at the Department of Homeland Security. And I've said on one of my other podcasts, the voice office that was there for angel families, for us to keep track of the illegal criminals and their cases and to have notification of when they were deported, was turned into a hotline for trafficking victims, even though they paid the cartel. And so Mayorkas figured out how to turn that hotline into, they call in and say, I've been trafficked, even though they paid. And they're immediately transferred over to USCIS and they're immediately given a work permit. I mean, I was on the
Yeah.
day.
Oh, it's the work permits. So right now we're handing out work permits. We're giving illegal immigrants guns. We're letting them become law enforcement officers.
It's insane, isn't it?
It's
to
totally
arrest
insane.
and detain American citizens.
Well, and we're attacking those that stand up for their freedoms, that have freedom of speech, that say there was something wrong with the election. The January 6th thing is abhorrent. But there in Tucson, there's I think it's called Mitsubishi. They work on airplanes, and I've gotten a call from several of the people that work there that are management, and they say they're bringing us these work visas, but we've got people working on planes that don't speak any English, and their people don't want to sign off on that work because they can't even communicate with them, like, what did you do? But yet we're allowing people that are here on work visas to work in areas that are secure, that are confidential, that are highly classified. That makes no sense to me, but that's what this government is doing. And you don't even know about it because there's so many things happening. But these work visas are their way to, I think, get them a work visa, then we get them a license, then we get them I do believe this is a concerted effort to bring more voters into this country, because they can't do the elections the way they did it the last time.
Well, and we just had a judge in Arizona stand by the previous ruling that, so in the state of Arizona, like in my legislative district, Lorena Austin, who's a Democrat who won last cycle, who I'm running against,
Yay.
she was all about giving a driver's license and immediately registering anybody who gets a driver's license in the state of Arizona to vote.
Correct.
Now, this ruling by the judge, because we were trying to fight it, to say you have to prove you're a citizen to vote, because you have to prove you are to vote in any statewide election in Arizona. But in a federal election, you don't have to prove that you're a citizen of the United States.
Correct.
And Arizona has stood by that ruling, that they don't have to prove this. So this is why the Democrats are pushing for everybody to get registered to vote, because they get a special federal election ballot, and illegals are voting in our federal election in Arizona.
Yes,
As
100,000
there are
left.
in many other states.
Yeah. Well, and
They're making decisions.
yeah, federal only ballots, and they do get to vote, and they shouldn't get to vote because they're not citizens.
Because they're
And
not going to vote for somebody like you who's about a secure border.
right.
You know, they're going to be voting for the Raul Grijalvas of the world because they're the cartel congressmen, you know, and your opponent. They're going to be voting for the people who are going to be making it status quo for them in this country.
Well, we need to fix that. I mean, when Tom Horne was in as the Attorney General, we greatly restricted federal only ballots. We went through great efforts to make sure that there was some kind of ID. And the amount that were used back then were 10 or 12,000. Now it's way over 100,000 ballots of federal only. But the last election cycle, Marianne, when people came in and they said, "Oh, I'm federal only," they gave them a full ballot. Many times they were just given a full ballot. So I don't know how many people that was affected, but our elections are broken right now. And unfortunately, it's not because we're election deniers. I think everyone knows that the last election held in this state had great problems, whether from the paper size to the number of ballots. My last primary, 33 polling places at 7:30 in the morning ran out of ballots. 48,000 ballots didn't make it to 33 polling places. So,
and Maricopa County was just fraught with it. And actually, Maricopa County and the election in Arizona in 2022 is almost like another January 6th. You better shut your mouth, or you're going to be, you know,
well, so you mentioned Soros. Soros is funding Project 665, which goes after any attorney that represents a Republican that has the audacity to say that something was wrong. You know, you're not allowed to say, "Well, this happened," and so if you do, they are filing bar complaints against those attorneys and trying to get them disbarred. They're censoring them. They're suspending their license. So attorneys that have worked for Mark Fincham, Carrie Lake, Abe Hamadeh have all come under attack by Soros money that is funded to the bar. So our bar has been corrupted, because it's not now about that anybody gets representation. It's about you need to represent, and you don't get to speak up against this.
Right.
So it again, our lawfare, right, and two-tier justice system. So it goes back to what we talked about earlier about prosecution. If we don't have the will to prosecute these crimes, the crimes will continue, and we're seeing them escalate to this day, and it's just unacceptable. And I think the worst thing you've heard before is for good people to do nothing. So I'm just not willing to be one of those people.
Neither am I.
I know.
But you've got a country now that election denier. So you're not allowed to speak up and voice a concern about how an election was run if you're a conservative, because Democrats and liberals can do it all the time, which they did for many, many years. 2016, they harped and harped on it. Look at how long Hillary went on about it, and members of Congress. So you've got an example there. Don't say anything that you think an election was corrupt. And then you've got January 6th. Don't think you're going to stand up against anything that you may disagree with that the government does, unless you're Black Lives Matter rioters and pro-Palestinian rioters, then you're okay. And to think that these pro-Palestinian rioters were at the White House fence, breaking through one area and being held back, from getting through the next fence, but graffitiing and waving foreign flags outside the White House, and that's not insurrectionist actions, and nobody was arrested for that. Could
Right.
you imagine if that was a bunch of conservatives at the gates saying, we want Biden out of here? My goodness, it would have been another insurrection, January 6th situation, right?
Well, I would say I don't believe that there was the first insurrection. So, but yes.
No, I don't.
By name only. But to your point, Israel's an ally of this country, and to not understand that was a calculated slaughter of innocent human beings,
Yes.
and that we would somehow go to the side of the people that slaughtered them, is absurd. And that people in Congress would do that. There needs to be a house cleaning, literally, and we need to change the leadership of the U.S. Congress.
It needs to be saged. You need to go in there your first day with your sage and walk through that place, Kathleen.
With all the evil energy. I think I do believe that people don't give voters a lot of credit. I do hope that people have determined that they have less money, that they're less safe, that we had world peace, love Donald Trump, hate Donald Trump. If you go back to just 3 years ago, we had the lowest unemployment. We were prosperous. We were energy independent. We were doing manufacturing in this country. We had jobs. And we don't have any of that now. And we are outsourcing everything we have. Saudi Arabia just joined with Russia and China. I mean,
scary.
It's very scary. The CCP still funds the Central American and Mexican cartels. They're getting to buy land in our country, buy military bases. I mean, people are standing up, but it's not enough. And I think the average American is frustrated, and they need to know, what do you do? And what you do is figure out who's running in your community, do some research, find out what is the background of the people that are running. I've been a citizen my entire life. I've shared this before, my husband's great-great-grandfather helped found this country. He's one of the founding fathers, James Wilson. He helped draft the Constitution, and he served on the first Supreme Court. That's where our American dream started, when America started. I have something at stake in this, and everybody does. So this is about doing the very best we can so that everyone can have the American dream and the dream of America that the founding fathers thought was necessary. And not even necessary. They put everything on the line. They risked everything so we could have this country against the tyranny and oppression of the crown. And for us to lose it when we have one of the best countries in the world, there's no excuse.
There isn't.
And we have to do better than we are doing right now. And I'm just, I literally am just not prepared to not go down without a fight, and a coordinated, organized, standing up for our God, for our country, for our children. And there's no other choice right now, because if I don't do that on my watch, then shame on me.
No, and a lot of people are starting to feel that way. I just want you to talk. I came across something. I mean, I knew a lot about you already, but I was kind of dibbling around on the internet last night.
Yes.
So there's a website. Is it called Untrafficked? So it's stated on there, and I know this is true, but between January 30th and February 11th of 23, nearly 350 arrests were made in an operation to combat human trafficking and sex crimes in Phoenix. And this was all during the Super Bowl and the Phoenix Open. And what part do you play in that organization or that?
Well, I used to. I'm no longer with that organization. However, I still have contacts with the organization. I still have Project 25, which is my nonprofit, and it was a 10-year commitment to God, 2015 till the end of 2024, the beginning of 2025. And what we do is find missing children, and our nonprofit has found 28 missing children, not as many as that, but that's a big sting because you go in and there's organized crime. There's massage parlors. There's all different ways that people buy, and when you do a sting like that, you will put out what's called a bait ad, where you put out an ad, you say that you have a child or someone for sale, and the law enforcement goes on. And I've worked on many of those operations. Unfortunately, every time we do one of these ads, we have to shut down the sting because we get too many people. We don't have enough resources to arrest people that want to have sex with children. The most famous case that I've worked on in the last 10 years is the Alicia Navarro case. And Alicia Navarro went missing out of Glendale, Arizona. She was 14. This past June, she walked into a police station and turned herself in, said, I want to be taken off the missing child network, because we had done a good job of keeping her name out there. And she just didn't want to be famous anymore. And she'd been in hiding with the pedophile that kidnapped her and took her to Montana. So they got all that sorted out. He is now in jail because he had 85 images on his phone of child porn. And America is the #1 consumer in the world of pornography. And child porn is illegal. And so about 3 months ago, before Christmas, we reunited this mom and daughter who had not seen each other for 4 years. And I've been with mom. So our organization works with survivors and survivors' families, along with getting technology for law enforcement. And I learned a lot doing that walk with this family, because less than 1% of kids that are missing for 4 years ever are found alive. And we had a miracle here. And it's taught me that anything is possible, even when you have no hope. And if I look at America right now, I think it's the same thing. But I believe our God is a good God. And no matter what we went through in that process, this mom never lost faith. And she taught me so much about moral courage and being willing to stand for something, even when there's no agreement or it doesn't look like circumstantially you can get from where you are to where you believe that you should be. And so it was my privilege, and it continues to be my privilege to help this family. And in every family that we find a child, the worst night is when they go missing, and we cry and we're sad. But when we get them back, we cry even harder, because it's something that I feel that it is the greatest gift that we can give, is to rescue and save our kids from these atrocities.
100%.
And it's my purpose. If I have a purpose in life, that would be that purpose. And to underscore it, God, 18 grandkids, I think that he's kind of just exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. So,
Yes.
but I hope that answers your question.
100. Yes, it does. So tell people how your website, how they can donate, even if you're out of state. Arizona is a very important state in the 2024 election. We've got to get these congressional and senatorial positions away from the Democrats. We've got to turn Arizona red again. So tell them where they can go, how they can donate to your campaign.
Thanks, Marianne. You can go to Winn, WINN, and Kathleen Winn, winforarizona.com. So winforarizona.com. If you live in my district, you can go on and go to Secretary of State's site and sign my petition. If you don't live in my district, everyone can donate. And just let us know that you care and you care about the border. I tell people that my district is the district where everyone comes for their photo op. My district is the border. We are the border. We are the border between Mexico and Arizona, the southeast corner, and we need your support. And I promise you that I'll serve in accordance with the law and the Constitution. So winforarizona.com.
Thank you so much for joining us. I love you. I love your heart. I love your passion. And I'm behind you 100%, as you know.
I do.
And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, Kathleen. Thank you again for joining me.
Thank you, Marianne. Love you too.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Well, I love having people on and showcasing exactly why I support them and why I back them. And Kathleen is the epitome of the type of person that I support running for a congressional seat. She knows her stuff. She's passionate about it. I know how much Kathleen is out in our community. She knows what's happening, especially to the ranchers and the farmers and even just the everyday people living down along the border who are affected by this craziness that's going on in our country. So I just want to let you all know that tomorrow I'm having Sheriff Lamb from Pinal County on as my guest, and super excited to have him on. He's running for Senate here in Arizona, and we've definitely got to take back these Democratic seats here in Arizona. It's so important. And Kari Lake is also running for the Senate seat, but against Mark Lamb in the primary. But I am a firm supporter of Mark Lamb. He started this race months and months and months ahead of Kari Lake jumping in. He's worked so hard. He knows what needs to be done. He has worked in the sheriff's office down there in Pinal County. He was a deputy under Sheriff Babu before that. He's been in law enforcement. He gets what's going on. And I think we need a strong law enforcement type person in that position in DC to go in and really set these people straight. And as a man who's been involved in law enforcement and been involved with the border, I think he can have the conversations that are necessary with those across the aisle, especially the men that think they know everything there in Congress, and really set these people straight. So I'm very excited to have a conversation with him tomorrow, and I hope you will all tune in. And then next Tuesday will be Representative Andy Biggs from Arizona. He's going to be joining me, and I'm looking forward to having a conversation with him about the impeachment hearings with Mayorkas, some maybe behind the scenes information he can give us about the budget talks and what's happening there in DC. And he's a wonderful man. He's not my representative, but I support him 100%. And I'm hoping really soon here to have Jerome Davison. He is running for Congress, and he's actually running to be my congressional representative. And I'm hoping to have him on my podcast here before the end of the month also. And then on the 30th, I'm having Tom Homan as my guest on my podcast. So we'll be able to talk to him about, anticipating if Trump gets back into office, if Tom's going to be going back to work for President Trump, and to really set this country straight and work on deporting a lot of these illegal criminals who have made their way across the border under the Biden administration. So we got an exciting rest of the month coming up, a lot of great guests. So please stay tuned, and I hope you have a good rest of your day, and we will see you tomorrow with Sheriff Lamb.